Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, it is officially the first day of spring, which means in Arizona, things are heating up. And for the Sun Devils on many fronts, the action's just getting cooking.
Yeah, man, I've been enjoying the cooler weather and some of this rain. And, I hear all these people that in the colder months are like, I can't wait till summertime, 110-degree weather. I'm like, no, miss me with that, man. I like this 50s and 60s. So I'm going to go begrudgingly into this warm weather. But, yeah, there's a lot going on. There are NCAA tournaments coming up, and ASU has some sports that'll be competing in those, some that will not. A lot of things going on. It's kind of that, like, transition time, right, when those, fall sports are coming to a close, but you got the spring ones that are really getting into high gear, and so you have that overlap. Gives us some things to discuss.
Yeah, and so today our focus will be on the wrestling mat as the Pac-12 champions. I believe back to back, right?
And so four out of five. Last year they did not claim it, but I guess sometimes you got to let some other folks have some fun. But yeah, exactly.
So we're going to be focusing on Zeke Jones' wrestling squad as they are heading to Kansas City to compete for the NCAA title, and a number of, 8 Sun Devil wrestlers are going to be out there hoping to claim the national title in their own right. A little bit later on, we're going to go in-depth on the wrestling squad with head coach Zeke Jones, one of the most accomplished head coaches in ASU sports history. Take a deep dive there. But before we do, a quick dive into some other news notes around the Sun Devil sporting sphere, starting with our bread and butter at football. Offensive lineman Toby Mueller, a 2025 offensive line commit, a big dude who was a local player here in the Valley, committed to ASU after decommitting from U of A, again scoring maybe a little bit of bonus points there. He recently moved up to Utah, and as part of that, perhaps decommitted from Arizona State.
And wasn't his decommitment from U of A and commitment to ASU, wasn't it right around the Territorial Cup game or something like that?
It was like
right in that ballpark. So, I mean, on the message boards, Devil's Digest, things like that, there had been talks about how he had moved from Utah, and when you see that, you start to wonder. Like, that was kind of the first shoe to drop, so to speak. So, you will see where he ends up. Wonder if he'll stay in state there, play for the Utes or something like that. That remains to be seen. But obviously that was going to be a potentially valuable piece of ASU's future offensive line. We all know that that's an area where there's a lot of help needed for the future. So, that is a blow. I don't know if it's something that ASU can remain in contention for, if that's still a possibility, or if that ship has completely sailed. I suppose that remains to be seen.
Yeah, we've seen some players decommit and then recommit. CJ Fight, a cornerstone for the Sun Devil defensive line, one of those recent examples. So, again, we will see. And, of course, spring football practices are starting up on Tuesday, March 26th. We will have a full in-depth preview episode going position by position, highlighting all the key battles. Drop it in your Speak of the Devils feed here early next week. But also, we should talk a little bit, Joe, about Sun Devil basketball, and we will be having a kind of a deep, maybe state of the program type episode, taking a real deep examination, because I know a lot of folks have a lot of feelings about this program. The season is mercifully over after a one and done showing at the Pac-12 tournament. A couple of news items that are kind of attached to that. Bobby Hurley's contract extension, which had been reported over a year ago, now officially finally signed.
Such a weird deal. Yeah.
So Hurley is now under contract, I believe, through the end of the 2025-2026 season. So I know we ran a poll on the Speak of the Devils Twitter feed. Over 500 of you chimed in. 53% wanted to keep Bobby Hurley for another year. So not exact. I mean, that's more than half, but he's not the most popular man in town as of right now.
So I don't recall. Was it worded like, do you want, or like, do you think? Were people using
do you
their
want? We're just like, do you want?
Gotcha,
just like,
because logic would tell you, no full-time athletic director in place, that sort of thing. Like that would make sense. And maybe some folks were kind of voting, with that logic in mind as well. I mean, I think a lot of the signs point toward that. It was a bummer of a year, and bowing out to Utah by a score of 90-57 in the Pac-12 tournament.
That's the worst loss in the conference tournament's history, which is now over.
It's over. Closed. You know what? You set some records on the way out. How about it? A forgettable season to say the least. You had that mini little run at the beginning of the conference schedule. We'll obviously dive deeper into this in the coming weeks, but as you mentioned, mercifully over. That whole deal with that contract extension not having been signed or finalized, that is just odd to me, just beyond odd to me that something like that kind of sits around for a year, a full, like I think it was right around this time last year, right around tournament time last year that was announced, because that was the whole thing. You had, Yahoo saying he should be fired last year when ASU made a run that was as good as, anything that they've done in recent years. So, we'll see. So you've got those 2 years. Now, obviously, it's not necessarily a guarantee that he'll be here, for both years. So I think you're still in a position, even with this extension, where a lot, if not everything, is on the line next year, and that is a challenging circumstance to face going into the Big 12. That is about as good as it gets when it comes to college basketball.
Yeah, the difficulty is definitely ramping up next season with the move to the Big 12. So yeah, as Joe mentioned, we'll be diving in a lot of detail and really kind of diving into kind of over a holistic state of the program type of view, and of course, it wouldn't be the end of a season without a transfer portal opening. Basketball's opened on Monday, March 18th. This one runs 45 days. We have some mixed signals so far on the Sun Devil roster. Guard Adam Miller tweeted a pitchfork emoji. So take that for what you will. It's a good sign, perhaps. But we've also seen players, starting quarterbacks, who tweet a well-produced, slick video saying they're coming back, only for that to not be the case a couple weeks later. One guy who did make his intentions very clear, Jemiah Neal, has also announced that he is intending to enter the transfer portal after a season in which he took kind of a step forward, 11 points per game, 5 boards, a couple of assists per game. A guy that I believe entered the portal last year.
I think he did too, yeah.
Came back as well, so we saw other players do it. So just because you enter doesn't mean you're gone, but who's to say these days?
Right. I mean, it's at the point now where I just kind of wait until like next school year starts, and whoever's going to ASU and deciding to play these sports, that's who'll be on the teams. That kind of seems like the madness of it. So, okay, so educate me. So for basketball, is it just this one window, or do they have a later one as well? Do you know?
I don't know offhand, but the 45 is a long time. I believe it was the first football one's like 30, and then the end of April one's 15. 45 might.
So then they're putting them. That's 40. If you're doing 30 and 15, you're doing two separate ones adding up to 45, according to mathematics. So maybe this is just one. Yeah. Again, there's an easy answer out there somewhere that we just don't have. So maybe this is it. Basically, what I'm getting to is when you survive, this window, are you going to be in pretty good shape? Who knows? So we'll see how it works out. It's almost just a guarantee that you're going to lose a bunch of guys, obviously get a bunch of guys. ASU still has a highly regarded high school and junior college signing class for 2024. So, yeah, we're now shifting into roster management, attrition, turnover, all those wonderful things that we love about college athletics these days. And ASU, when you have a tough situation where you have, a year that was very uninspiring, and even though your head coach has a contract extension, which helps, for the players that want to play for Bobby Hurley or come here to play for him, that's at least there. He has a contract that goes those couple years, but, to an extent, it's understandable if players are going to at least keep their options in mind.
Yeah, so we will be definitely tracking that over the coming weeks and months, and how this year's Bobby Hurley squad kind of assembles and kind of taking that first year jump into the Big 12. What faces will be returning, if any? I mean, we saw a high number of turnover last year, perhaps with a little bit better NIL situation. Maybe there's a chance at not only retention, but acquisition. So, again, we will be taking a much larger and deeper dive into hoops here very shortly in the coming weeks. Moving on to baseball, a mixed bag of a week. A midweek loss to New Mexico, which had a lot of fans pretty dispirited prior to a very crucial road series against the Arizona Wildcats. And first two games were pretty good, especially that Saturday game. Connor Markle spent a gem. I believe ASU held the Cats to just a single hit in the game in the win there. ASU won the series by taking the first two games, but the pitching depth was maybe exposed a little bit on Sunday. Wildcats came back with a vengeance, shellacked the Sun Devils to salvage a game in that series. But overall, just kind of ASU this season just hovering around 500, kind of a couple steps forward, sometimes a couple steps back, and just really hard to get a true read if this team is going to be able to make a run in a positive direction.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very important weekend, as we talked about when we were, last recording. That loss New Mexico was pretty demoralizing, and that had you looking at that weekend series in Tucson, thinking, man, this thing could get ugly. But then ASU battled back and won, I believe, in the 9th inning on Friday, winning 3-2. And then you mentioned that 4-0 Connor Markle gem before things kind of got off the rails on Sunday. And sometimes those things can happen on Sundays. And so yeah, you split the 4 games that they played over the course of the week. Obviously, you feel good about winning the series over Arizona, especially in Tucson. I mean, that's an important thing. That is something that's very, very meaningful, especially since in the non-conference game these two teams played last year, ASU got shelled. What was it, 20-0, right, last season? So that was a bad taste that everybody in the program wanted to remove from their mouths. But I don't know that we know much more now than we did, a week ago before this week took place. Now, if you look at the conference scale, heck, ASU is in a multi-team. I mean, they're only like 6 games in, obviously, but you're tied for 4th in the conference. As far as overall records, I mean, you've got Oregon State. I mean, they're an elite team at 17-2. They certainly should be an Omaha team this year. But there's a fair amount of parity from there. You don't necessarily just have those upper echelon teams like a Stanford is at 500 right now. They've obviously been elite for many years. Cal is having an oddly good season. So seems like it's shaping up to be kind of a weird year in the Pac-12 in baseball. Again, Oregon State should take that whole thing. But what I'm eager to see is if that early season stretch of very tough games, proves to be a bit of a blessing in disguise. And I think we'll get a good sense of that this week. As we record here, ASU is actually playing Utah Valley right now. And they play a 2-game midweek set, which is kind of unique, Tuesday, Wednesday against Utah Valley. And then they travel to Pullman to play a weekend set against Washington State. And, Washington State is not often a very high caliber team in the Pac-12. So, I mean, if you can get 4 wins out of this week, I mean, you really shouldn't lose more than 1 game, I don't think. I mean, we really don't, you never say never with things, but let's see where we are this time next week because things could be a little bit better. But then ASU has what could be a very important series coming up the following week to end the month of March when Cal comes to town. And again, usually that's not a team that would register as like a marquee opponent, but right now they're pretty hot. So if ASU can get things going on the right track this week, again, I think this week is going to be huge, and we're going to be able to see what this team is all about when we're standing here this time next week.
A lot of fans are getting a little restless, wanting to see some progress and kind of the 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. We'll see hopefully that they can maybe put things together. Having kind of gone through the fires of that really tough, RPI, favorable non-con schedule, they can make a run here and then really kind of start to stack some series wins together and get things back on track. And the Sun Devil baseball fans have very, very high standards. And so Willie Bloomquist and staff have their work certainly cut out for them, as well as the Sun Devil wrestling team, but they're in much better shape. We're coming off their 2nd straight Pac-12 championship. Joe, tell our dear listeners what to expect this weekend in Kansas City.
Yeah, so we took a deep dive last time out on what happened in that wonderful day in Corvallis, Oregon, when ASU ran away with the Pac-12 title, 5 individual titles there at Pac-12. So that was a big momentum day. We obviously talked about that in depth last time. So now you've got 8 guys going to NCAAs, and as a reminder, there are 10 weight classes. So ASU has basically 8 of their 10 guys going. That's a good amount. That's a lot. If you recall, last year ASU finished 7th in the country by qualifying just 5 wrestlers. Now, 4 of them went on pretty deep runs, and that's how you stack up points, and that really helped the team's overall score. But the more guys you get, that helps you. And so not only were those assignments made, and how that panned out is you had the 5 individual champions from the Pac-12 conference. You had Julian Klebov, who got a qualification as well, as did Kyle Valencia, and then Tony Negron got an at-large bid. They made those additional at-large selections last week, and he was given one which he earned and deserved, so I'm glad to see he got in. They were also assigned the individual seeds, so basically where they're going to rank, within if you think about like the NCAA tournament for basketball, you see Selection Sunday and who gets the 5-12 matchups and that sort of thing. Similar thing with wrestling is that they have 33 wrestlers at every weight group. Some of the highlights there, Richie Figueroa, again, red hot right now. He got an 8 seed. That means that the folks that make these picks think that Richie Figueroa has what it takes to become an All-American, because for college wrestling to be an All-American, we think of All-American in many contexts like football, baseball, basketball, where a writer or a committee puts together their All-American team. Wrestling, it is 100% achieved by the athletes because it's basically the top 8 finishers. So by virtue of this seed, that's at least a thought that he could get there. Obviously, he's got to do the work to get there, but he is really, really wrestling with a lot of confidence, and getting that Pac-12 title only helped that. Moving along, Jesse Vasquez got a 14 seed, pretty decent there. You've got some pretty high elite seeded wrestlers. Kyle Parko at 149, Ja'Cory Teamer at 157. They both got 2 seeds. So what does that tell you? Again, mathematically, and it doesn't always work out mathematically, that the folks that make these selections think that Kyle Parko and Ja'Cory Teamer have what it takes to go and battle for a national championship. If you're the 2 seed, it only gets one higher than that, right? So these guys could have some deep runs ahead of them. They've done so in the past. These are both multi-time All-Americans as well. Colton Schultz, of course, the highly accomplished heavyweight. He is the 4 seed. There are some elite wrestlers at the heavyweight level. Those 3 ahead of him are some very, very good ones. So that could shape up to be some, really, really exciting wrestling when they start to whittle down to some of those finalists there over the course of this upcoming weekend. So basically what you're going to see is a bunch of chaos. I suggest you watch it, especially in the early days when it gets started on Thursday, I believe, because you could check it out on, like ESPN or whatever, and they have the multi-mat view. You can watch like 8 mats at one time and see just a bunch of anarchy going on. It is a fun all-day thing. They whittle things through as they go on, and then you get to that, championship round on the final day. And then that's going to crown the individual champions. And then as the points stack up throughout the course of the weekend, because that's basically how you determine the national champion and who ranks where, is how many points you accrue over the entire span of the championships. So again, that's why it's so vital that you send a lot of guys, and 8 is a lot, and that those guys succeed at what they do. ASU last year was number 7 in the country. The 2 years before that, ASU was ranked 4th in the country each year. And so with 8 guys, you're certainly expecting that it's going to be within that top 8 range, maybe even into the top 5 perhaps. I saw some projections on some accounts that I follow that say, like, if you go by the seeds, I think ASU should finish something like 7th in that range, somewhere along those lines. Sun Devils have overachieved at this tournament, quite frankly, in recent years. So could be exciting. Again, like we mentioned last time out, to take Penn State off the pedestal that they're on is going to be a very tough task for any team to do. They're just completely on fire, winning multiple championships in a row, and just have a tremendous amount of talent. But Zeke Jones and his guys are going to put everything on the mat to get that done and to rank as highly as possible, and maybe shock the world, get a national championship for the first time since 1988, maybe get some individual national championships for the first time since Zahid Valencia did so, I believe, about 5-6 years ago. So it's an exciting weekend shaping up. I want to be glued to it. ASU's in this tournament. They don't happen to be in the other one that you call March Madness. So I would say if you've never watched college wrestling, just give it a look. I think you'll be entertained. Sun Devil fans, supporters of ASU athletics, supporters of Arizona State University, anybody out there, strongly, strongly encourage you this Thursday, March 21st. So if you're listening, this is probably tomorrow or maybe today, depending on when you're listening to this. Get on out to 100 Mile Brewing Company, and that's right there around the 202 and rural. 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Thursday night, the Hey Buddy Beer Blast, to honor the legacy, the memory, and help support the scholarship fund in honor of Alyssa Serenay's, of course, a dearly beloved member of the Sun Devil community who passed a couple years ago. It's going to be a great fundraising event, a great time for Sun Devils, a great time to remember one of our own, and again, support a very, very worthy cause. Come on out. There's all you can eat, all you can drink beer, live music, $40 gets you that all you can drink, or excuse me, 3 beers, all you can drink of different kinds. There's the Hey Buddy Peanut Butter Stout. That sounds good. A peanut butter stout to me is like a Mount Rushmore caliber beer in my estimation.
If done well, it's immaculate.
It's incredible. So so get on out there. There's going to be raffles, bunch of good times. There are going to be some prominent Sun Devils there appearing. I will be there. I'm not saying I'm among the prominent Sun Devil list, but it's going to be a great time. Again, March 21st, Thursday night, 7:30 to 10 p.m. at 100 Mile Brewing Company. Check it out. You're going to have a great time once again for a great cause. The NCAA Wrestling Tournament goes down this weekend in Kansas City, and Sun Devil Wrestling is looking to stay among the elite of college wrestling. And so we got to bring in the man welcoming back Sun Devil legend, ASU Hall of Famer, Olympic silver medalist, head coach, Sun Devil Wrestling, Zeke Jones. My man, thank you for coming back with us.
What's going on, fellas? Good to be on, and excited about talking about wrestling.
All right, Coach, obviously the most important time of year is up ahead this week, but let's take a quick look back at the season so far. What's your evaluation on the dual meet season that you had? Some tough competition, some ups and downs, but really things started to kind of build some really impressive momentum, certainly down the stretch over the last few duels. Give us your review on kind of that part of the schedule.
Yeah, well, first off, it's March Madness. Like you just said, we throw a T in there and call it madness. It is full effect, and you get to that madness because of the season, right? You go through a season, everybody starts the year undefeated, and then you start to find, that life is real and there's struggles. The dual meet season was a perfect testament to that. Challenges. You only had the whole starting lineup in only twice all year long together. Not only that, we had a guy that's trying to make the Olympic team and traveled half the season all over the world, the whole planet, in quest of being the best in the world. So it's going to happen that you're going to take some hits along the way. And, the end of the year dual meet season was good. We wrapped up strong. We beat up a good Lehigh team that's, picked to finish top 5 in the country right now. And, a tough dual meet with Nebraska, but still, things look good right now, Brad.
So when the Pac-12 tournament came around, on paper, it looked like there would be some parity in the league, that a few teams might have, a chance at winning that Pac-12 title, but you made sure that nobody else had a shot at that thing. I mean, your guys were locked in. That was a dominant performance up in Corvallis. So tell us, what went on behind the scenes that helped that team be so focused up there at Oregon State? And also, how important was it to win that final Pac-12 tournament?
Well, the Pac-12 finished the way we wanted it to. It was a challenge, right, throughout the year. I think, a lot of people said, hey, there's a lot of parity in the Pac-12. And in the moment there was, that teams were like a Little Rock would come along and do a really nice job. Obviously, Oregon State had some quality wins. But in the end of the day, we always knew that when we got our whole team together, everybody healthy, with some matches, and Colton back in the North American hemisphere, that we could put a team out there that could dominate. And in the end of the day, the team was positioned to do exactly what it wanted to do. And, 5 champs and a whole lot of placers and 8 NCAA qualifiers really showed that, that last Pac-12 championship, it's going to go in the books, and that's going to have a Sun Devil name next to it. We're pretty proud of that.
So as a result of all those accomplishments throughout the season at Pac-12 and the full body work, you got 8 guys, as you mentioned, going to the NCAAs, and you've put together top 8 and top 5 finishes with fewer wrestlers at the NCAAs in recent years. Just how excited are you to be able to bring so many wrestlers to the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, when Dan Wakely, who supervises wrestling, the CFO of the athletic department, says, hey, what do you think we can get through? And any 5 to 7 or 8 and, 6 or 7, is probably the number. And, when we got the 7 that we had qualified spots for, where we thought we could get 7 through, for sure. But then, Kyle Valencia was seeded 5th in the Pac-12, and he took 2nd. And that earned him a spot to the NCAA tournament. He essentially stole an allocation away from another team, and he won it. And so it was really good to see us overachieve. We wrestled at or above our seeds in all 10 weight classes. So I think that just tells you that the kids are really wrestling right now, having a lot of fun, and just really grateful to freaking be out there wrestling for the Sun Devils.
All right, so let's talk about those guys that are, going to be competing out in Kansas City. Richie Figueroa has been really red hot as of late, including, of course, the first career conference championship. Things really started to seem to get going for him kind of late in the dual season. Is there anything in particular that really has kind of ignited this run from Richie, and how do you expect him to perform at his first NCAA tournament?
Yeah, well, high expectations, right? Last year, Richie undefeated, 14-0. And then obviously we went with Brad and Courtney last year. But then, this year, Richie in his own right, preseason top 5 in the country. And then what you learn is the very best kids in the country coming out of high school come to college and think, I'm going to just zoom right to the top, just like I did in high school. Well, college is a different level, right? Where everybody's really good. Everybody's a 3-time state champion. Everybody's won a national title in high school. And Richie ran into that group of kids with injuries. And so Richie never wrestled 100%. He was always kind of 60, 70, 80, just coming off an injury or getting healthy and then got dinged again. And so I think that just, learning to wrestle, at a deficit physically, then being able to just get the matches he needed. I really think that you're not really hitting your true form until you get about 5 to 10 matches under your belt. And then, Richie really needed to hit that number. And once he did, you couldn't stop him, right? I mean, he's just been, beat the number 2 kid in the country, number 5 kid in the country. He's just been knocking them off one at a time. And Richie's in the hunt to win a national title. There's no question he can win it.
Now, Jesse Vasquez's conference title at 141, that was a satisfying win, to say the very least, for a number of different reasons. It was awesome to see him get his shot after just those heartbreaking injuries the last 2 years that kept him out of Pac-12. So how great was it for you to watch Jesse not only get his chance, but make the absolute most of it?
Yeah, you want to talk about patience. Jesse's been hurt for over 2 years on and off, hasn't been able to put a full season together, and then again this year be injured. And, he's now just for the first time been healthy. And then not only that, to be healthy and come into the end of the season feeling really good, he had to wrestle in the Pac-12 finals, his high school teammate, his college teammate, who then went on to Oregon State. And that teammate that he wrestled, who's now at Oregon State, was the defending Pac-12 champion, Cleveland Belton. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of history there. And for Jesse to stay composed and realize, hey, I'm the best guy in the Pac-12, that I can beat the best in the country and the best in the world. And he finally got a chance to prove it, and he felt good. And he's wrestling with a smile on his face. I mean, wrestling's a combat sport. Not many guys wrestle and smile. They grit their teeth. But he's smiling as he's wrestling because he's having fun.
And so we talked about the momentum guys like Richie Figueroa, guys like Jesse Vasquez have, but my goodness, Kyle Parco is wrestling at a high level right now. I mean, he's been elite his entire career, but this is something special. Beat the number 1 guy in the country and then went around and won his 3rd Pac-12 title. So a couple questions, and he's a number 2 seed for NCAA. So a couple questions for him. What qualities make Kyle Parco such an elite competitor, and what are the most important things he's going to have to do to bring back that national championship hardware at 149?
Yeah, what makes Kyle great is he's a pro. He's been there, done it at the highest level, year in, year out. He's been in the mix to, wrestling at a national championship level. And, just beating the number 1 seed. So Kyle's the number 2 seed. He just beat the number 1 seed 3 weeks ago, right? From Nebraska, Ridge Lovett. And so he feels really, really confident right now that it doesn't matter what his seed is. He believes he's the best guy in the country. And, what makes him great is he's just a great human being. He's a pro every day. He's a student of the sport. He's mentally tough. He does the work. He's committed, passionate, loves what he's doing. And, he's really grateful and thankful for his opportunity to do this sport that he loves. And God's given him this gift, and man, he's going to utilize it. And I think we're all going to see it live on ESPN, nationally on Friday and Saturday night when Kyle gets that opportunity to show the country he's the best in the country.
So similar to Parco, Ja'Cory Teamer, a national elite competitor, very known commodity, been around for a very long time, just added to that short list of 4-time Pac-12 champions. He's a 2 seed at NCAA's, just like Kyle Parco. So, of course, he was out all last year due to injury. So how important has it been to have Ja'Cory back in the lineup? And again, what does he need to do to become a national champion?
Yeah, Ja'Cory, again, 5-time New York high school state champion, first guy ever to do it. What it says is signifies he's won at the highest level, understands what it takes to win year in, year out. Was in the NCAA semifinals 2 years ago, then had an injury last year that kept him out. And Ja'Cory knows what it takes to win. Number 2 seed, right, says that he should make the national finals and lose in the end. But like anything, those are only numbers. That's why you go wrestle the tournament. And Ja'Cory's very skilled, world-class ability, great on his feet, great in top and bottom. And I think most of all is Ja'Cory is really, really hungry. He wants this, and he wants it really bad, and his preparation has been excellent. So, like Richie, like Jesse, like Kyle, Ja'Cory can win a national title. And then I'm sure you're headed towards Colton. When you can put 4 or 5 guys in the finals, you're talking about 100 points. When you're talking about 100 points, you're talking about a national championship final, first or second team placement. And Ja'Cory's going to be a guy that's going to help us do that, has to do his part to do his job if we're going to do that. And I just think Ja'Cory's ready right now.
Julian Klebov and Tony Negron each made it to the finals at the Pac-12s against some really nationally prominent opponents. And they'll both be at the NCAAs this week. They both showed quite a bit of improvement this season, kind of compared to earlier in their careers. And how do you evaluate what you've seen this season from Julian and Tony?
Yeah, Julian beat the number 10 ranked kid in the country last week in the Pac-12 semifinals and got caught in a move for 7 points, and it just in the very beginning in the finals against the top 6 seed. And so, Julian is there. He's definitely a kid that can get on the podium. We feel very strongly that anything less than a podium finish, being an All-American for Julian, would be underperforming for Julian. And really, Julian knows it. Julian's beat these guys before. And like Tony, I think Tony and Kale Valencia both are hungry. They're 31, 32, 3 seeds, which basically says, hey, nobody expects you to do anything. And that's your chance to prove everybody wrong. Tony and Kyle are in a position to show everybody that you guys are wrong. I'm good enough to do this, and get out of my way. I'm going to do it. Somebody has to get on the podium. Why isn't it me? Why shouldn't it be me? And I think Kyle and Tony feel that, and Julian too.
So you mentioned his name a moment ago. We got to talk about that heavyweight, Colton Schultz. Man, he's all smiles until it's time to step on that mat. Then he gets into levels of focus and intensity that are just out of this world. He won his 4th Pac-12 title a couple of weeks ago. Barely a minute in the championship round before that one was done. He's obviously a known commodity throughout the wrestling community, but give us your evaluation on Colton. What makes him such a dominant, imposing wrestler?
Well, I think Colton, his goal isn't to be the best in the country. His goal is to be the best in the world. And if you're the best in the world, you're certainly the best in your country. And I think his quest to be an Olympic champion is brought him at a level that all of us, follow or watching him. Hey, what is he doing? Because he's at the highest level. I want to get to where he's at. So he leads in that regard. He leads, he's been all over the world, the planet this year. Wrestling for Team USA, getting qualified for the Olympics, and now needs to go win the Olympic trials. But it doesn't make it a lock. There's no guarantee. You got to go wrestle the matches. And he's actually a number 4 seed, which, I kind of chuckle at and I kind of like, that the number 1 seed he's never lost to. He actually beat him a couple years ago, Kirk Levitt from Penn State. And so I love that matchup. Again, Colton's got to get there, but he's just the ultimate professional. He gets what it takes to be the best, and he has just a great mindset that, he loves what he's doing. He doesn't get weird about it. Like when people get into championship time, sometimes they get nervous and, oh my God, I'm here. Can I win? He's just having a good time saying, I love the sport of wrestling. I want to be great at it. He doesn't get, hung up on things too much. He doesn't, get too serious about himself or what he's trying to do. He loves the sport of wrestling. He's really good and gifted at it. And, the guy wants to win a national title, and these guys are dangerous. They haven't won one yet. And that makes you dangerous because you're hungry for it. And Colton, nobody's more hungry than Colton, right? He wants to be the best and win a national title, and he's in position to do it.
So we've broken down the wrestlers we'll be seeing at NCAAs, but I know that no team in any sport can have the success that you've had without a tremendous staff. Lee Pritz, Frank Molinaro, Eric Thompson, as well as people like Jess, your athletic trainer. Our good friend Amanda Keems working with the team.
That's right.
How vital are all of these folks to that high-level national success that this program has enjoyed over the last few years?
Hey, Joe, it takes a community of people, man. It takes a whole group of people from our doctors to our trainers to our coaches to our sports psychologists to, even Denzel Burrell, who's our academic coach, who's coming out this weekend. Kurt Klingerman, who runs all our events, he's here because they all want to help us be the best. But not only do they want our wrestlers to be the best, they want to see the Sun Devil Wrestling program and Sun Devil Athletics be the best. They're here. Colton Turner from our ticket office is here because he wants us to have the best experience, right? So it takes a group of people. We got over 400, I'm going to take that back, over 300 people, almost 400 people traveling with Sun Devil Wrestling who have tickets in our section. They'll be in section 115 and 228, I believe it is, cheering the Sun Devils on. And they'll be wearing, gold shirts one day, white shirts, black shirts, as the color of the singlets we're wearing each day. And we got a lot of people supporting the Sun Devils out here. And, Dan Wakely, who supervises wrestling, will be here. And you'll never know when a guy like President Crow will pop in. If you have 4 guys in the NCAA finals, I'm sure we'll be seeing people on plane Saturday morning coming out to, be on ESPN with us on Saturday night as we get ready to, crown some national champions.
Of course, all eyes are on the big prizes up ahead, but taking a look a little bit beyond at the move to the Big 12, and of course, you've personally had great success both as an athlete and a coach in the Pac. But the Big 12 offers some really outstanding competition and some opportunities. What are your thoughts on the move?
Love it. Love going into the Big 12. I've always wanted the Pac-12 to stay. I always felt we needed a conference in the West. And that was just always talking about wrestling. Everybody always, you're going to keep wrestling in the Pac-12. Well, whoever would have ever thought that we might not have any sports in the Pac-12? And if that was going to happen, then if we're going to make everybody shift, then I'm all for going to the Big 12. That makes us so much of a better wrestling program because the Big 12 is a wrestling conference. There are over 14, but it will have 14 programs in there next year. Oklahoma State's won 34 national team titles. They're in the Big 12. They've won more national titles than any sport of any school of any sport in the NCAA. Wow. And then when you add Iowa State, Oklahoma, who have also won national team titles, many of them, we're at a conference of wrestling national team champions. And so we just elevate our game and we're excited to go in there. We feel we can compete with anybody. And then maybe the last thing that a lot of people overlook is the team that's won the last 3 Big 12 championships in wrestling is Missouri. And they were ranked top 5 all year and came in and, or we went there this year and lost to them. So you want to talk about it, the Big 12, you're talking about 5 of the top 10 teams in the country in that conference. So it's going to be great for us.
So we are just a couple weeks away from you hitting 10 years on the job as head coach at Arizona State. What are some of your favorite memories from these past 10 years? And how do you feel the culture of Sun Devil Wrestling is now compared to when you took the job in April 2014?
Well, just on day one, when I received the call from Don Bakke and Art Murtori about wanting to win a national championship at Arizona State, and, are you interested in coming to ASU? And I said, well, I'm coaching the best team in the world. I'm coaching the U.S. Olympic team. Why would I want to leave? And they said they wanted to win a national championship here at Arizona State. That's memory number one. Memory number two would be having my family live in Arizona in a beautiful place. There's no place in the wrestling world that has the beauty that we have at Arizona State and our community in Phoenix. And then, knocking off Penn State, winning our first Pac-12 title, things like that. Penn State hadn't lost in 5 years, knocking them off in front of a home crowd of 10,000 and, crowning our first championship, our All-Americans, our Zahid Valencia winning his national titles. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's been just a fantastic journey. I'm very grateful and blessed to lead this program. Me, I'm a Sun Devil for life. I've been here since the 80s, man. So it's the best. I love being here, and this is home. This is family.
So now before we let you go, we want to let everybody know who's watching and listening to us here, support Zeke Jones and Sun Devil Wrestling. There are a lot of ways you can do that. And coming up, Sun Devil Wrestling Banquet at Rawhide Steakhouse in Chandler. That's Friday, April 12th at 5 p.m. I'll be out there. It's an awesome thing every year. Come on out. Have a good time. Support this program. Then the next day, Saturday morning, April 13th, the Sun Devil Wrestling Golf Classic at the Whirlwind Golf Club at Wild Horse Pass, also in Chandler. Coach, we truly appreciate your time. You're out there in Kansas City. We truly, truly value you. We look forward to you and a bunch of guys bringing back some major hardware after this weekend. Go shock the world, win a national championship. Bring it back. Let's celebrate in Tempe.
Let's do that, boys. I appreciate you guys. Love everything you're doing. Appreciate the support of the program. Banquet and golf outing. They always sell out. Go early. Get your tickets early. And, Friday night and Saturday night nationally live on ESPN. Hopefully you see a whole bunch of Sun Devils up there.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our great guest, ASU head wrestling coach, Zeke Jones. Even though it is spring, there's a lot going on in Sun Devil athletics, so make sure you stay with the show on the social media side of things. We got a lot of great content coming down the pike, especially with spring football starting up. You can follow the show on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devils. You can follow us on YouTube, on Facebook, and give me a follow on social media at bdenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy42. A huge thank you to our wonderful sponsors, of course, including Jones Auto Group. If you're watching, I'm wearing this incredible Jones Auto Group polo shirt I got from my man Parker Jones, who I believe just had another child. Welcome to
congratulations,
a new addition
Parker.
to the family. Congratulations to the Jones family. Also, a huge thank you to DevilsDigest.com, Cactus Sports, Burrito Express, Spaghetti Shack, and Sun Devil Family Charities.
All right, and also make sure to support the good brand at homefieldapparel.com. They just dropped a really awesome, sharp, brand new snapback ASU hat. They have hats now, also as well as 25 other great Sun Devil pieces that you can get for 15% off your first order with our individual offer code SOTD23. That's SOTD23, 15% off at checkout at homefieldapparel.com. And of course, once you're done supporting all of our amazing sponsors, make sure to drop us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. Joe and I will be back very soon as we preview spring football.